From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
After taking part in the unveiling, House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello says the new transportation funding proposal, which included tolling truckers, likely will not be in the state budget. Is the toll plan out of gas for this year? Our guest on the first half of Newsmakers, Rhode Island Department of Transportation Director Peter Alviti. Then, a scathing report by Republican lawmakers says poor management of the Rhode Island Convention Center is wasting millions in tax dollars. The response with our guest on the second half, Convention Center Authority Executive Director James McCarville.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel is WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Good morning, everyone. Director, really good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, both of you. I'm so looking forward to talking about our initiatives, and we're really excited about this whole new initiative that we have. This
well, you might be excited about it, but the House Speaker, it looks like he threw a little bit of cold water on it on Thursday. He said he had too many questions to likely include the tolling plan in the budget. I think what everybody is asking right now, is the proposal dead for the year?
I'm very optimistic that it isn't. I have all the confidence in the world that between the information that we've provided to the Speaker, his staff, and the Senate, that we will be able to work out the details, and the Governor and the Speaker will work out the details of our proposal. And we stand ready to provide all of the information that's necessary to be able to move this forward. It's very important that we do this now. I mean, not only, most importantly, from the standpoint of safety, that the bridges that are currently deficient in our state pose a very big problem in terms of safety, but also from the standpoint, I think everybody agrees that as we move forward with this, there's going to be jobs created and there's going to be an uptick in our economy because of it. I'm confident that that will carry the momentum that we've created with this forward.
Look, I was at that press conference, so was Ted, yes. And I remember the House Speaker up there lauding the plan.
Yes. Did
this catch you by surprise?
No, I've been in the industry too many years to be surprised by anything. I'm sure that the Speaker has valid concerns, and we're going to work with him and his staff to provide him with the data and the information that he needs to do this.
But you haven't been able to so far. Why not?
Oh, I think we have.
He says you haven't.
I think we've come a long way. There may be a couple of issues that he may have some uncertainty with, but as I said, I'm confident that we can get the kind of information that he needs in the next few days to be able to provide him with the level of comfort with this.
In time to get it into the budget, if the budget comes out Tuesday, or do you think later?
I'm hopeful that that will happen.
You and the Governor made this sound pretty dire, and you just did a minute ago. Basically no time to lose here. What if it doesn't make it by the end of this legislative session? What then?
Well, on the negative side, I mean, 1 year in this project would mean that probably another 20 bridges become deficient in that 1 year period. That takes an already unsafe condition to another level. In the last few months since I came aboard, we've had 4 bridges, decks blow through to the road or to the ground below them.
Should people be scared?
No. We've got our engineers working continuously on this problem, and I believe this plan will correct all of those. And we're doing projects this year.
So people should be scared if the plan doesn't go through, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm not going to cause an alarm here. We will manage to keep the bridges safe. It may mean that it turns into a situation where we may have to close some of them to keep conditions safe. But foremost in all of what we do at DOT is the safety of the motoring public. And I can assure you we will keep the roads and bridges safe during this.
What went wrong with the rollout of the tolling plan? It's looked very messy from the outside. I mean, you had the big announcement. You did have the legislative leaders there.
Yes.
Governor was on this show 2 days later with us, said it's not the trucks they think that the truckers are worried about. Then a few more days go by, and suddenly you're rolling back the number of trucks that will be impacted. The toll numbers are changing and everything. I mean,
Yes.
was the homework not done?
No, I think what you're seeing is us responding to the wants and needs of the people that this plan would have been impacted. In recent days or in recent weeks, through this whole process, we have listened to all of the stakeholders. We've listened to the construction companies and road builders. We've listened to the labor segment. We've listened to community groups and citizen groups in terms of what they need and want. We've listened to the trucking industry and who they represent.
They say they weren't consulted or told till the day before this was announced.
During this entire process, we continuously try to improve upon the plan, and even going forward after legislation, I'm sure we'll continue to make improvements to it. But the key is that the two big changes that we made recently was in response to the truckers' needs in our discussions with them. Was there a way we could modify our plan? We've got a very good group of people working on this plan for the last several months, and we were able to respond and make the changes that accommodated some of the concerns of the trucking industry and still maintain the integrity of our plan.
As you and Ted just pointed out, one of the changes you made is you dropped the class or raised the class of trucks that would be affected. Yes. So class 6 and 7 were taken out of the fee plan. Yes. So people at home understand that's the size of truck. The larger the number, yes, the bigger the truck. Right. Okay. So when you did that, did you increase the cost per site?
Yeah. There are a number of factors that go into the development of the cost and the revenue that you generate from these. We continue to make those adjustments in our planning, and when you take about 15% in those two classes of the traffic out of the equation, there are other parts of the equation that are changed to balance that out.
So the revenue has to stay the same. So either you increase the number of tolls or the toll itself.
Yeah, the revenue is determined by the cost, of course, of rebuilding the infrastructure, rebuilding the bridges. And we've defined that. So, but we've been talking all along at, the tolling, making sure that the tolling we're proposing is going to be fair and equitable, and that it addresses the segment of the motor vehicles that are most impacting the infrastructure. And that we know from the laws of physics are the heavy trucks, okay? And that for far too long, the average motorist, the mom and dad that drives their kids to school, the small truck delivery businesses, have been putting more than their fair share into that equation. What we've been talking about all along is that the toll will be in the range of $40 to $50.
To drive through the state.
To drive through the entire state along a corridor. We're still in that range. By losing 15% of the vehicles from the classes that we eliminated, it may move us to the higher end of that range. But we're still in that range where, when you compare us to other states, we're right in the middle.
Why won't RIDOT release a list of the bridges you are you've said 17 to 22 bridges. Yes. You clearly have some list somewhere, but it
yes.
won't be released. Why won't RIDOT release the list?
Well, here's the good news is that we've got 155 bridges that we've identified that will be repaired or brought out of a state of deficiency into a state of sufficiency. So we have plenty of bridges to choose from at which to toll. What we're doing is there's a combination of factors that go into choosing which bridges we're going to choose to toll. One is their cost, another is their geographic location, and the other is the amount of traffic that will go by those particular bridges. There are other ancillary things that we take into account, but we want to structure it so that, again, it's fair, it's equitable, and we're positioning them in a way that we preclude things like trucks bypassing them by taking other routes and those kinds of factors. So the actual locations, we've got some good ideas, prime candidates in terms of the selection, but the selection of the actual location still has mostly to do with taking the cost of those particular locations that we are selecting and making sure those are the ones that fit into that extra category that needs the additional funding from tolls, and just that, so that we can minimize the amount of the toll that we have to charge.
This whole plan is about a $700 million bond. I mean, it's bigger than that, but the immediate money to repair these bridges is a $700 million bond. Without the tolls, is that in jeopardy? And if not, how are they going to pay for it? Is the gas tax back on the table, increasing that, for instance?
Well, you know, the gas tax has always been an issue. You know, to do this program, the diesel fuel tax, for example, would have to be raised on the order of $1.50. That would be extremely unfair. And it always goes back to a matter of equity in the way that we devised to be able to pay the cost of repairing these bridges. And it goes back to a fairness issue. The average motorist has been subsidizing too much of their fair share in the past. And all that we're trying to do is create some equity in requiring the vehicles that are most responsible for the construction costs, initial construction costs, and the maintenance costs involved with these bridges to be paying their fair share.
On that comment, I noticed that the data you used for that when I was at your press briefing was from 1979. Is that reliable to you to use data that is that old?
Actually, we're not. We're using data that is as current as this year's radar and traffic data that we've collected. And
the data I'm talking about is when you discuss that the vast majority of wear and tear on our roads and bridges on our highways comes from large trucks.
Well, the laws of physics don't change over time. And the fact of the matter is, a truck on the order of the size of the semi-trailers, the 18-wheelers of the size that are in the classes that we're proposing to toll, are in a size and weight class that each vehicle of that size is creating the same damage as literally thousands of automobiles. So there's that. There again comes into play that fairness factor.
James Kennedy, a transit activist in Providence, has been beating the drum that the idea that the 610 connector, huge project that's partly funded by this plan, should be switched to a surface boulevard so that that part of the city wouldn't be so cut off. Has RIDOT looked at any kind of sort of radical reimagining of the 610 connector?
We surely have. Part of our reimagining of DOT itself is a new look, a fresh look at how corridors like 610 should be rebuilt. And we know that 610 goes through an area with demographics that look toward mass transit as an alternative way of their transportation. And we're looking very closely, and we'll continue to work with those groups of people through public hearings and that, and formulate our ideas. But we're looking forward to including in 610 something like a rapid bus transit that will move people from urban centers like Olneyville, Manton, high-density areas in Johnston, into our transportation hub in Providence more efficiently, less expensively, and in a way that they're looking to travel. that will alter the way that we look at it. You know, the design contract for Route 6 and 10 went out the door at DOT 30 years ago. And because of a lack of funding and because of the scale of the project, it hasn't been built. Roadworks provides an opportunity to do that and do it in a way that provides a final product that will create jobs, that will give us a world-class transportation system that will help our economic stability, and provide at the same time, while accomplishing that, a much safer environment. You both, or either one of you, I'm sure, were at the press conference the other day standing underneath Route 6 and 10. So I'm sure you can see
it wasn't the safest feeling in the world.
No,
I'll be honest with you.
No, no, it isn't. And that's what this is all about. It's all about, yes, improving the economy, yes, creating jobs, but mostly creating a safe infrastructure.
Peter Alviti, Director of the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
And when we come back, the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Convention Center Authority, James McCarville. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right is WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi, and our guest on the second half is the Executive Director of the Convention Center Authority, James McCarville. Jim, good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
House Republicans issued a scathing report that the Convention Center Authority, on the Convention Center Authority, and here are the fundamentals of their argument. They say the Convention Center Authority has been running at less than 50% capacity. They claim high overhead and employee costs. It runs at a loss through the summertime months, and business has not been growing. What's your response?
Well, I think on the occupancy issue, the Convention Center itself is running around 52%. That's 52% occupancy. That's all the spaces all the time. In terms of actual dark days, days when there's no event in the building, that's about maybe 30 or 40 days a year where there's nothing occurring. At the Dunkin' Donuts Center, it is a business that runs its major courses from the fall through, let's say, June or the middle of June. And it's typical occupancy for an arena of that size. The Vet's similar. They're going to do more business during the fall and winter periods, earlier spring, less in the summer. The summertime, a lot of entertainment goes outside.
And I should point out, and I should have off the top, we talk about the Convention Center Authority. We got the Dunk, we got the Vet, and we have the actual convention center and two parking garages, correct?
Correct. Okay. And when it really comes down to it, the convention center is the most important by far. The convention center is the one that attracts the visitors from elsewhere, whose economic impact is so much more significant. Again, we love doing the events that are aimed at the public or the regional audience. You know, the flower show, maybe it's the beer fest, the hockey and basketball. Those are all great, and they add to the quality of life, and they help us with direct revenues to offset what is really the reason we were built, which is to attract conventions, trade shows, meetings where people are coming and they're spending significantly more money in the market, and they're not in any way competing with another venue.
I want to show you, and the viewers, what I found to be a pretty shocking quote. This is from 1989. It was during the debate over the Rhode Island Convention Center Authority. I think we can bring it up. Richard Oster, the chairman of the Rhode Island Convention Center Authority at the time, 1989, he said, quote, "This won't cost taxpayers one dime." I looked it up. It's a real quote. It was in the Journal 1989. It's on track to cost over $700 million for taxpayers. I mean, were the taxpayers lied to? How could that have been said?
All right. I was there for some of that conversation back in the early 90s. And what Mr. Oster, Chairman Oster, who, by the way, gave a lot to this project. I mean, he was a top-level executive and really pushed this thing forward. His argument was always, without a doubt, the bonds are going to need to be paid for by an annual appropriation from the legislature. You're building a business that doesn't generate that kind of a profit. When he said it's not going to cost taxpayers one dime, what he's saying is, get this project built, get this operation running, and what you will see is the development of additional properties and of additional facilities. You're going to see, as it has happened, you're going to see the Westin Hotel got built by the authority, but the Westin Hotel got expanded by the Prakashani Group. The Courtyard was added to the market by the Marriott. The Residence Inn took over the Masonic Temple. Did Mr. Oster say, well, we will make sure that the Masonic Temple gets redeveloped? No, but that's what his thinking was. In his thinking, and thank you for the question, in his thinking, you're going to see a facility built. So there will be an impact from that facility being built during the construction period. So then that hotel, let's just take the Courtyard because it's the easiest, it's right across the street. There's going to be an impact from the construction. Then there's going to be real estate taxes going to be paid to the city every year.
This won't cost taxpayers one dime, and we're talking about $780 million. That sounds like spin to get this thing built and get people on the hook for it. I mean, would you argue it actually hasn't cost taxpayers one dime because of the economic impact?
I would not argue that because I don't know all of those numbers. I can't tell you what it was worth to get the Courtyard built, to get the Renaissance renovated, to change the Masonic Temple from a derelict building to a beautiful hotel. I can't tell you, what the value is of all of the associated revenues, but those people pay real estate tax. They pay property tax on their furniture, fixtures, and equipment. They employ people. We take people off of right care and put them in jobs. 1,400 jobs. Is 1,400 jobs? That must be worth something. Again, that's probably hyperbole.
Are you saying if they weren't working there, they'd be on right care?
I don't know.
I mean, that's not a high testament for your employees. I mean, they'd be able to find work, you would hope.
All I'm saying is, if you take a quote and say, well, not cost one dime, and clearly you know that you're borrowing $300 million to build it, it's going to cost something.
State Rep Patricia Morgan said, quote, the Convention Center Authority can and must do better. Can you?
Well, every year is different. Every market is different. Every year we go into the year with a different schedule. The Dunkin' Donuts Center is pretty stable, and the Vets is growing. The Dunkin' Donuts Center has room for growth. Maybe we can add some more events, and we can certainly work on some things to get a little more economies of scale between all three facilities. But in the grand scheme of things, do you know who was in the building for the last 3 days? Society of Wetland Scientists came in. There was only 600 people. It has a much lower profile. It's not even as interesting as the RV show. Mm-hmm. But that's an important piece of business. So if those kinds of things happen where we're doing $125, $140 million in economic impact, that's what we're there for. So if it's a question of generating a net dollar, based on a marketing decision that says what's the better piece of business for the authority and the state taxpayer, for us to work toward direct revenues, better bottom line on our own money, or is it better to induce and get more economic impact, more economic activity in the state, in the city? So those decisions, I think that's really a better measurement than P&L.
One of the Republicans' big critiques is that they say you're paying more for jobs than market wages. They cited housekeepers paid $17 an hour plus benefits, banquet servers paid $50,000 to $80,000 a year. Do you see that as part of the convention center's mission to pay above market wages, to provide subsidized jobs that pay better than the private sector would?
Those are kind of cherry-picked numbers. 1780, and they describe it as a housekeeper. Now remember, these are laborers. These are the same people who were on the roof of the Dunkin' Donuts Center clearing the snow after the blizzard. They're not housekeepers. So I think they get paid a fair wage, and it's a living wage, and it's enough to...
Right, so do you see it as it doesn't matter what the private sector's paying, the convention center wants to provide a higher wage?
Again, for a comparable job, I'm not sure we're paying particularly higher. They also talk about our security people being overpaid. They get minimum wage. I don't know how we could be overpaying them. But not every one of the banquet servers makes between $50,000 and $80,000 either, and they don't do that every year. They have to work very, very hard, and they have to be in a specific place on the hiring hierarchy.
Very briefly, Jim, we're running short of time. The Republicans also pointed out in your audit, it warns the authority may be responsible for the pension shortfall for some of the workers who are your private manager. Have you received an estimate of what that shortfall could be?
And we have 30 seconds, Jim.
All right, I'm sorry. The likelihood of that happening is extremely remote. They are not our employees. We are not signatory to those contracts. They are SMG's employees. These are private sector, multi-employer plans which are shared with other outside unions. So the construction unions.
Have you commissioned an estimate, though, of how much it could be if it goes wrong?
We actually haven't, because that statement was just, it's in the realm of possibility. If we decided to get rid of our management company and employ people directly.
We're out of time. Thank you very much for watching us. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.